After sending troops to Mali last month, France was swift in retaking the north from a coalition of jihadists and Tuareg rebels whose stated aim was to establish a permanent state in the Sahara and the Sahel. It even prompted French daily Libération on Monday to headline "The Hidden War." Well, now comes news of the kidnapping, or rather, where did the war go? Now comes news of the kidnapping of 7 French citizens on their way back from a national park in northern Cameroon. The French president blames Nigerian radical Islamist group Boko Haram. The story comes after Saturday's storming of a construction company compound in the nearby Nigerian state of Bauchi. The kidnapping of 7 foreigners, a Briton, an Italian, a Greek, and 4 Lebanese. Abductions claimed by Boko Haram splinter group Ansaru. Are we witnessing the jihadist answer to France's Mali intervention, or is it a case of business as usual for radical groups who dabble in hostage ransoms, contraband smuggling of all sorts? Who are the hostage takers? They seem homegrown, but are they getting outside help? And does this mean yet more of sub-Saharan Africa is effectively going to become no-go zone for foreigners? Today in the France 24 debate, we're looking at how France is facing a new hostage situation in Africa. With us to talk about it, Cameroonian journalist Louis Kemayou, news director at Télé Sud. Thank you for being with us. Emmanuel Goujon, Africa consultant from Africa Global Approach. Thank you for being with us. France 24 politics editor Mark Perlman. And from Lagos, Nigeria, Ozita Agbu of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs. The France 24 debate, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and Twitter, our hashtag F24debate. Let's first of all look at the area where the kidnapping took place. It was in a national park in the north of the country. I said it in the introduction, Louis Kemayou, this area, the Danga, it's a place where people like to go for the weekend, to the national park. Tell us a little bit about this area. Has there been trouble there before?
No, there have been no troubles. The fact is that it's a very touristic place where you don't have the promotion it should be deserved to have. So Cameroon aims to realize the best touristic places it wanted to present to the tourists coming from France, because Paul Biya was here last week to explain how interesting is Cameroon for the tourists, for the French investors, and so on. So weather is one of the most interesting parts in Cameroon, except that when we talk about the borders, which are colonial heritages, it has all its explanation here, because you have people who are from the same, how can I say that? They speak the same languages, they have the same culture, but they live at the 2 crosses of the border. So it is difficult there is no visa, for example, between Cameroon and Nigeria. There have been some conflicts concerning the borders, but the people live very freely along the two borders. So it is very easy to see a Cameroonian spending all the day in Nigeria and returning to Cameroon just to sleep and then return back to Nigeria the next day.
And I can imagine it's shocked, the news of these kidnappings.
Yes, of course. The other thing I want to say concerning the security in this zone is, of course, there were a phenomenon there we call Cooper de route, of bandits who really attack people and try to get money from them, but they didn't take hostages. We didn't face that situation before. But except that, the population is really angry against them, and they try to really watchdog the situation and make sure those jihadists won't take place in the northern part of Cameroon.
The French president commented on it shortly after he was on a visit to Athens in Greece. Here's what François Hollande had to say.
These French nationals had moved there for professional reasons and were dependent on a large energy company. They made a tourist trip to the north of Cameroon, next to the Nigerian border, a dangerous zone. I ask all our expatriates to be extremely careful, because we know the threat that exists, and we will do everything we can to find them.
All right, that foreign company he was mentioning, the French group GDF Suez, which is developing a liquefied gas project in the south of Cameroon. François Hollande, who, by the way, spoke of Boko Haram's hand in the kidnapping. They have been taken by a terrorist group that we know and that is in Nigeria. I see the hand of Boko Haram in that part of Cameroon. France is in Mali, and it will continue until its mission is complete. French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius, who's here in Paris, speaking in the company of his Malian counterpart, also connecting the dots with Boko Haram.
The zone where they were taken is in the north of Cameroon, not far from Nigeria and Chad. And that allows us to question if it is Boko Haram, which in the past already was connected to Malian terrorist organizations, because a part of Boko Haram was trained in northern Mali.
Emmanuel Goujon, your thoughts on Laurent Fabius? Quick, it seems, to connect Mali, unless he's got very good information, obviously.
He must, normally. Better than us, at least.
Your thoughts on the French seem pretty sure that it's Boko Haram's hand in this.
It seems so, I think, because there is many reasons, and they are rational, to believe that Boko Haram is very active in that whole area. This terrorist movement, named at the beginning Nigerian Talibans, referring to the Taliban in Afghanistan, were in fact was born in this very place of Maiduguri, which is Borno State in northeast of Nigeria, which is exactly near the border, close to the border with Cameroon in that area. This area is interesting also because it's between Chad and Nigeria, but it's a very small corridor, in fact, of Cameroon between these two countries. And it seems that some of the terrorists are trying to cross over, maybe to go to Eastern Sudan or something like that, Western Sudan, at least are trying to cross and to attack also Chad, which is supporting the French action in Mali nowadays, because there is around 1,800 Chadian troops in northern Mali alongside the French troops to free the northern part of Mali. So it seems that Boko Haram, as the main terrorist group in northern Nigeria, might be one of the main responsible for it. But it might be also this terrorist group Ansaru, which is a splinter group from Boko Haram, about which we don't know much, in fact. So it's not yet clear. Nobody has claimed this kidnapping so far. But of course, Boko Haram might be the main threat in the whole area.
Now, you mentioned Ansaru. On Saturday, there was an attack on a Lebanese construction company's compound in Bauchi State. It threw the spotlight on that splinter group, which has claimed responsibility. Ansaru sending a short communique in English to local journalists. There you see in Bauchi State where it happened. We outline on the map there Katsina, where a French citizen has also been taken for ransom. And so, again, Nigeria was high on a lot of people's minds, Emmanuel Goujon, when the intervention began in Mali. Nigeria, quick to say that they backed the French on this one.
Yes, but you know, Nigeria is a very complicated country and is divided between a Muslim north and a mainly Christian south. They have been fighting among the two communities all the time in Nigerian history. And now, of course, as the superpower of West Africa, Nigeria wants to show that they are on the right side fighting against terrorism. But the fact is that inside their own country, they find these terrorist groups. Boko Haram attacked inside Nigeria many times. Even in Abuja, I think 4 years ago, they did a bomb attack. They attacked many places in Maiduguri, but also along the border with Niger. It seemed that there is intelligence information that there have been also a lot of Boko Haram fighters training in northern Mali, as Minister Fabius said. That, I guess, the French army got the information from their own sources there on the ground. So we know that it's a very complicated situation, and we know that Boko Haram is one of the main terrorist groups, well organized, with many people, as Nigeria is one of the most populated countries in Africa, even in the world, 140 million people. And they are very strong with real bases, both in Nigeria and in Niger.
Ozida Agbu, thank you for being with us from Lagos. What's the feeling on the fact that we had on Saturday an attack claimed by this splinter group Ansaru, and today the French blaming Boko Haram? What's the feeling in Lagos where you are on this?
Yeah, thank you very much. The situation is really interesting right now because it is difficult for one to say that what we have is an escalation of the activities of the terrorists or the activities of Boko Haram, as the case may be. But on the other hand, what is a bit kind of caught people off guard is because Boko Haram is supposed to be talking with the Nigerian government right now. So Boko Haram, or a splinter group of Boko Haram, has made overture to the Nigerian government, and they're actually in talks right now.
Osita Agbu, I'm going to interrupt you because we're having technical issues with the quality of the phone line from Lagos. We'll try to fix that and get back to you. Mark Perlman, you sat down a couple of days ago with Nigeria's former president, Olusegun Obasanjo. Boko Haram, born on his beat, a homegrown jihadist group in Nigeria. What did he have to say?
He said the same thing as the French are saying now, that there was a lot of training happening in Mali, and that therefore it was a regional phenomenon, and that Nigeria has been saying it for a while with little echo in the Western world, but clearly now with the war in Mali, this is having an echo. And I also went a few months ago to Niger, and I talked to the president of Niger and some very senior officials in the security area and so on. And they were also very worried that there were Boko Haram cells in Niger. So clearly, this is not only a Nigerian phenomenon, and this is what the former president of Nigeria was saying, but it is a regional phenomenon. And so the big question is, for François Hollande tonight, is the war in Mali wreaking havoc in the region? This is really what's happening for the French, but also who could have imagined that Cameroon would be involved if there is a link between the hostage taking tonight and the fact that the French troops went into Mali. And so there is a lot of concern in Niger, in Nigeria, clearly now in Cameroon, in Chad, as was mentioned, that this could have an impact. And let's not forget that the war in Mali is probably a consequence of the war in Libya. So you have this kind of whack-a-mole game that seems to be going on, and that could be dangerous for the region, albeit the fact that the military operation has been rather swift and smooth for the French, although there was a second French soldier we learned today that was killed. Nevertheless, for now it's been going well, but clearly the consequences are worrying for the French and for François Hollande.
Louis Koumet, do you connect what's happening in Mali with this hostage-taking, or is it too early to tell?
No, I consider it's the same phenomenon, because when you have rebels who have a free zone like they have it in the northern part of Mali, everyone can jump to join that zone, coming from Cameroon, coming from Sudan, and so on. You know, the only border that could, how can I say that, disturb them is the Chadian border. But if they pass through Cameroon to join Nigeria and then join northern part of Mali, there is no problem. They can connect with the jihadists there in Nigeria.
And you're saying in that northern thin strip of Cameroon, security is pretty light.
Yes, of course, because they don't have lots of troops there. There was no interest to pack lots of troops there in way to protect the frontier. We had a litige with Nigeria concerning the border, but it was at the southern part of the country.
Down near the Gulf of Guinea. Osita Agbu, the question is for Nigeria now. First of all, how do you handle what Mark Perlman was describing as this game of whack-a-mole? What's been the official response to for instance, the kidnapping that took place on Saturday? What are they going to do about it, the Nigerian government?
Very difficult. Like I said, it obviously appears to be an escalation. Even as the Nigerian government is trying very much to curtail, the violence and the kidnappings associated with Boko Haram. But at the same time, it's very important that we do not close the options. The options are open. Boko Haram is under pressure in the northern part of Nigeria. because the Nigerian government has been effectively engaging with them, both in terms of dialogue and in terms of military activity. So they are under pressure. It is possible that splinter groups of Boko Haram have moved across the border to the nearby countries. That's one. Secondly, why I say that the option should be open is because you also have a lot of criminality going on. So certain groups, fundamentalist groups who claim to be Boko Haram could also be involved in criminal activities of kidnapping or ransom. So we have to be very careful to know exactly what we are dealing with here, because like I said, Boko Haram is presently discussing with the Nigerian government.
That's an important point. Emmanuel Goujon, groups that will no doubt put out a communique touting their cause. We'll get that communique at some point. But as just now, Azita Agbu was saying, sometimes it's just about money, ransom taking, and this kind of thing. So how do you distinguish what the motive is really for these hostage takings?
Of course, it's very difficult all the time. We never know exactly if it's a kind of mafia group that has taken the hostages to sell them maybe to another Islamic extremist group. This kind of bargaining trend has been going on for a long time in Eastern Africa, especially in Somalia. We know it with act of piracy also in the Gulf of Guinea, where some boats have been taken by some pirates and sold to other people in order to make money, some rebel groups sometimes even. What is clear in that precise example of today is that it comes after the French intervention in Mali, that's for sure. If the French intervention of Mali is a consequence of the situation in the whole area, or this situation of hostages is a consequence of the French intervention, I wouldn't say is the second option. I would say first, France intervene because, in fact, there is a worsening of the security situation in the whole Sahelian region for a long time.
As Mark was saying.
Clearly, this is the first hostage taking since the French intervention on January 11th in Mali. So this is clearly something that's on François Hollande's plate now. This is clearly, people will see it as a consequence. People might discuss maybe their criminal motives and so on, but nevertheless, that's it. And probably if there is a statement saying this is because of the French intervention in Mali, you'll have to answer it.
Most probably they will say it.
A fact to mull over, France has the most Western hostages in sub-Saharan Africa. I'll ask you why when we come back. You're watching the France 24 debate.